What if the one promise you swear to keep becomes the very thing that shatters your life in two? The sun was a hammer over Coyote Wash. It beat the land until every rock, fence post, and living soul carried a coat of red dust. Cole Thatcher felt it settle into the creases of his face and the folds of his shirt as he rode into town. 3 long months on the trail had carved him down to grit and muscle. He was tired, hungry, and longing for a soft bed that did not move under him. But he was proud too. The Longhorn cattle had sold for a good price. The gold in his saddlebags meant he would be able to keep his small ranch running for another season. He guided his horse, a steady roan named Buck, toward the livery. The sight of Coyote Wash rising through the heat shimmer made his chest loosen. Home. At least, something close to it. Cole expected the familiar welcome of his best friend, Eli Vance. They had been brothers in everything but blood since boyhood. Eli with his easy laugh. Eli with his quick hands and quicker hope. Eli, who had told Cole, almost shyly, that Abigail would soon be his wife. Miles away, Abigail Vance stood in a small, quiet room behind May's mercantile. Afternoon, light touched her cream-colored dress. She turned slowly in the mirror, holding a plain gold ring in her hand. It was not fancy, but it was meant to be Eli's. She slipped it onto her thumb for a moment and felt the weight of the future she had waited so long for. Eli was due back any day. Their life on the land by the Willow River would finally begin. But fate in the West never came on time. It came hard and fast. The man who rode into town at dusk barely clung to his saddle. His horse looked half dead, and the rider was not far behind. He gasped the word ambush before sliding to the ground. People crowded around him, their faces tight with fear. When someone asked about the men guarding the gold shipment, the rider shook his head. No survivors found. They looked for 2 days. Eli Vance was with them. Those words struck Coyote Wash like a grave bell. Abigail's scream never came. She stood frozen on the mercantile porch, the gold ring cold in her fist. Cole felt the world tilt under his boots. The dust kept blowing, the sun kept burning, but something inside them had fallen silent forever. 72 hours. That was all Judge Grigg granted Abigail before her world was taken again. The courthouse was a stifling room filled with old paper, stale tobacco, and heat that clung to the walls. Abigail stood before the judge in a plain gray dress. Her chin was high. Her grief was a hard knot inside her, but she would not bend. Cole stood in the back, hat in hand, trying to understand why the judge had summoned him. Judge Grigg opened a leather book and spoke in a dry voice about territorial laws and water rights. He explained that the land Abigail had claimed with Eli held the only steady access to the Willow River for miles. With the drought worsening, the court needed to protect the resource. Abigail almost laughed. Protect? They meant steal. Ansel Vale, a rich land speculator, stood beside the judge. His thin smile made Cole's fists itch. Vale wanted that land. Everyone knew it. Then came the decree. To secure her claim and prevent the land from being seized for the, quote, public good, Abigail had to marry a court-approved suitor within 72 hours. If she refused, the land would be taken and sold. The crowd gasped. Cole felt sick. Abigail's eyes flashed with fury. Then the judge lifted his head and looked straight at Cole. The court recognizes Cole Thatcher as a suitable candidate. The room went still. Cole felt punched in the chest. Abigail stared at him like he had betrayed her without saying a word. Vale stood smug, sure the trap had been sprung. Cole pushed off the wall, his voice rough. This is not right. Eli is barely gone. Judge Grigg did not care. The law is the law. The clock is running. That night, a young stable boy named Thomas found Cole. The boy pressed a sealed letter into his shaking hands. Eli said to give this to you if he did not come back. Cole opened it with numb fingers. The message inside was short, but heavy as iron. Cole, if you are reading this, then I am gone. Vale and the judge want the land. They will use Abigail to get it. You must marry her. Not for love. For the river. For the future. Protect her. Protect the land. I trust no one but you. Eli? Cole read it again and again, each word cutting deeper. It was not the judge's plan. It was Eli's last wish, a duty written in the hand of a dying friend. At dusk, Cole found Abigail by the riverbank. She stood alone, throwing stones into the slow water. Her voice was thin and sharp. I will not let them force me. I will burn this land before I let them take it. Cole stepped beside her, the letter warm against his chest. He spoke gently. This is not their game anymore. It is ours. She turned to him with fire in her eyes. He told her the only truth he could speak aloud. We will marry. But on our terms. A marriage in name only. A partnership. You will have your freedom. Your home. I will not take anything from you. I do this because Eli asked me to. Abigail stared at him, her anger cracking under the weight of duty, grief, and the terrible corner she had been pressed into. Very well, she said at last. A partnership in law only. The wedding the next morning was not a celebration. It was a transaction. No vows of love, no kiss. Only two signatures binding them in a way neither wanted. They left the courthouse strangers, husband and wife only in name, bound by duty, bound by Eli's dying plea. Neither of them knew that the storm ahead would make this forced marriage crack open under the weight of truth, danger, and a desire neither one of them expected to feel. How do you share a roof with someone you are forbidden to feel anything for? The first days after the forced wedding were heavy and quiet. Cole slept on a bedroll by the cold hearth. Abigail stayed in her small bedroom with the door closed. Every sound in the house felt too loud, too close, like two strangers trapped inside the same heartbeat. Abigail worked from dawn, refusing to slow down. She checked the herd, managed accounts, and directed the ranch hands with a sharp, businesslike tone. Cole kept to the river and the fields, digging deeper wells, hauling stones, building a small dam to save what little water the drought had spared. They barely spoke except about ranch duties, but the world outside refused to leave them alone. One morning, Rivera found a section of fence cut clean. Not broken, cut. Someone wanted them afraid. That same week, a polite letter arrived from the bank. A loan her father once took had been purchased by Ansel Vale. It was not due soon, but the message was clear. Vale was not giving up. Then Reverend Pike rode out to the ranch, clutching his Bible like a badge of authority. He sat in their main room and lectured Abigail about the duties of a wife. He looked at Cole with suspicion and silent judgment. When he finally left, Cole muttered, "He has soft hands for a man who talks so much about labor." Abigail almost smiled. Almost. But the thin thread of peace holding them together snapped on a moonless night when the dogs began barking. It was a frantic sound that made the hair on the back of Cole's neck rise. He grabbed his rifle and rushed outside. Rivera met him at the corral, lantern shaking in his hand. Yearlings are in the west pasture, men are out there. Rustlers. Cole and Rivera saddled their horses, but before they could ride out, Abigail stepped onto the porch. She held her father's old Winchester rifle. Her eyes were steady. "Stay inside," Cole said. "This is dangerous." "This is my home," she answered. "My cattle. I will not hide." Her voice left no room for argument. They rode into the darkness. Over a rise, 3 riders were trying to drive calves away. Cole fired a warning shot. Rivera blasted the sky. The riders cursed and turned to attack. Then a sudden, sharp crack echoed from behind them, the ranch house. A bullet hit the dirt inches before the lead rustler's horse. Perfect aim, from that far in the dark. The rustlers panicked and fled into the night. When Cole returned, Abigail was still on the porch, hands steady around the rifle. The lantern light softened the hard lines of her face. "That was a fine shot," Cole said. "Thank you," she answered. "I did not want them hurting what is mine." Her words were stiff, but something in her eyes was softer. Respect, maybe trust. maybe something else she did not want to name. A week later, she found a letter at the end of the long dirt road. No stamp. Delivered by hand. Her name printed in rough block letters. Inside, the message was made of words cut from newspapers. Eli is alive. Do not trust Thatcher. Her heart stopped. The world tilted. It had to be a lie. It had to be a trick. But the poison slipped into her thoughts. Every glance Cole gave her suddenly felt heavier. Every act of kindness felt like a question. He sensed the change immediately. She grew distant again, watching him through narrowed eyes, speaking only when needed. He thought it was her grief, so he kept silent, giving her space he did not want to give. He did not know she lay awake at night, clutching the lie in her hands, letting it tear her apart. Then the drought struck harder. The river shrank to a muddy trickle. The cattle paced the fields with ribs showing. The valley felt like a dying thing. That was when Ansel Vale rode out to the ranch. He stopped near the barn, smiling as if he were offering charity instead of threats. "A hard season, Mrs. Thatcher," he said. "I can help. Sell me access to the river. I will bring pumps. The whole valley will survive." Abigail looked him straight in the eyes. "No." Vale's smile cracked. "Without cooperation, the council may declare the river a public utility. You would lose everything." He tipped his hat and rode away, leaving dust and menace behind him. That evening, Cole spread a canvas across the floor. He had drawn a map of the valley, marking the ditch he wanted to build. "We can bring water to everyone," he said. "If the other ranchers have water, Vale cannot force anything." Abigail studied the map. She still carried the lie in her pocket, still felt the sting of mistrust. But the plan was fair, smart, honest. She looked at him, and for a moment she saw the man Eli had trusted, not the shadow the letter tried to paint. "We will need more hands," she said quietly. For 2 weeks, the valley worked together. The ditch grew long and strong. The ranchers became something like a family. Abigail found herself moving with confidence again, leading with a steady voice. And Cole, he worked until his shirt was soaked with sweat and dust. Strong, quiet, unshakable. She tried not to watch him. She failed. Then came the dust storm day. The sky turned sickly yellow. Wind hit them like a whip. The ditch was almost done when the roar came. A deep, angry sound from the mountains. A flash flood. Water and mud and broken trees thundered down the riverbed. Abigail ran toward a calf trapped near the bank. The ground crumbled under her feet. She fell into the churning water. Cole saw her disappear and did not hesitate. He threw himself into the flood. The river slammed him against rocks, ripping at his body. But he fought through the pain and the roaring water until he reached her. He grabbed her dress and pulled her toward a fallen tree. They clung to its branches as the flood battered them, then fought their way to the bank. They lay in the mud, cold and trembling, but alive. Cole's side was bleeding badly. Abigail's breath came in sharp gasps. He staggered to his feet and half carried her through the storm to an old grain shed he remembered on a hill. Inside, he blocked the wind with old sacks and started a sputtering fire. The storm outside raged. Inside, it was only them. "You are hurt," she whispered, seeing the blood on his shirt. "It is nothing." But it was not nothing. She tore cloth from her petticoat and cleaned the wound. Her touch was gentle. His eyes watched her in the firelight, soft and open in a way she had never seen before. The shed felt small, warm, alive. The world shrank to 2 people and a fire that made shadows dance across the walls. She looked at him, this man she had feared, mistrusted, and depended on. This man who had thrown himself into a deadly river for her. Her heart cracked open in a way she could not stop. But she held back the truth trembling inside her. The storm outside was fierce, but the one inside her was far more dangerous. What do you do when the man you thought was gone forever walks back into your life on the same night you finally open your heart to another? Morning came soft and gray. The storm had passed, But the world outside the shed looked washed out and wounded. Cole tried to sit up and gasped at the pain in his side. Abigail reached out, steadying him with gentle hands that had trembled all night. "You saved my life," she whispered. He shook his head. "I could not let you go." There was no distance between them now, no wall, no cold formality, only a truth neither had meant to show. "I need to tell you something," he said. His voice was rough, honest. "About Eli, about why I agreed to marry you." He told her about the letter, Eli's last request. His fear of Vale and the judge. The duty he had carried like a weight on his soul. Abigail listened with wide eyes, her throat tight. And she saw the truth at last. Cole had saved her home not because of greed or power, but because Eli had trusted him to protect her. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the crumpled anonymous note. It said Eli was alive. "It said not to trust you," she whispered. Cole froze. "This is Vale's doing." A lie. She looked at him, not at his wound, not at his scars, but at the man behind them. "I believe you," she said softly. Something inside him broke open. She placed the plain gold wedding band between them on a wooden crate. "This ring was duty," she said, her voice shaking. But last night felt like something else. Slowly, she took his hand and placed it over her heart. His lips met hers. Slow at first, then deep and full of everything they had tried to bury. Their marriage, once a cage built by law, became something alive, warm and real in that flickering firelight. By morning, nothing between them was the same. But the world was not done testing them. A rider arrived at the ranch with dust in her hair and urgency in her voice. Deputy Nora. "Abigail," she said, breathless. "You and Cole need to come to town, now." "Why?" Abigail asked, fear rising in her throat. "It's Eli," Nora said quietly. "He's alive, and he's asking for you." The world tipped sideways. The ride back into town was silent and heavy. Abigail's fingers were cold on the reins. Cole stared straight ahead, blood pounding in his ears. Everything that had begun between them in the shed felt fragile now, stretched thin by a truth neither could avoid. Eli lay in a room at Ruby's hotel, pale and exhausted. When Abigail entered, his eyes brightened with the spark of the man he once was. "Abby," he whispered. She took his hand with shaking fingers. Cole stood in the doorway, heart splitting open as Eli looked at him, then at the ring on Abigail's finger. Understanding filled Eli's tired eyes. "You kept your promise," Eli said softly. Later, the three of them sat in the small church as Eli explained everything. The ambush had been staged by Vale. Crow's men had taken him prisoner. They held him for weeks, wanting to use him as a weapon to break Abigail and Cole's claim on the land. He escaped only when they needed him alive for one last lie. "They want me to testify that Cole forced the marriage," Eli said bitterly. "If I refuse, Crow promised to finish what he started." Abigail felt sick. Cole felt fire in his chest. But Eli looked at them both with steady, sorrowful eyes. "It's not just about the land anymore, is it?" he said quietly. Word spread fast. Vale stood on the saloon porch, twisting the story, painting Cole as a manipulator. People whispered. Judge Grigg announced an inquiry in 2 days. That evening, Abigail and Cole stood on the hill above the Willow River. The sun bled across the sky. Both of them felt broken by a truth they had not chosen. Cole turned to her, his face raw. "This is your choice now," he said. "If you want a life with Eli, I will leave. I will tell the judge what they want to hear. I will free you." The words tore him apart. Abigail felt the ground shift under her feet. She loved Eli, but the woman she had been, the hopeful bride in a cream dress, was gone. What had grown between her and Cole in the shadows of fear, fire, and truth was something different, something deeper, something real. Before she could answer, Ruby and Nora burst into Ruby's office with a ledger, a record of bribes, Judge Grigg's name written beside every payment. and an invoice showing Vale's plan to sell the water rights to the railroad. They had proof. Real proof. Nora rode back with warrants. Ruby sent a telegraph to the federal magistrate. The next hours became a storm. At dusk, Vale and Crow arrived with a dozen riders. A siege began. Ranchers from the valley rallied to defend Abigail and Cole. Shots echoed across the ranch. Fire swept the fields. Eli fought with a steady hand beside Cole, paying for the past with each shot fired. By dawn, most of Vale's men had fallen back, but Vale sent one last message through a rider. He had kidnapped May. He wanted Cole alone at Serpent's Cut at sunrise. The final battle began there. Vale, Crow. Gunmen hidden across rocks. Nora and Abigail positioned high above with rifles. Eli crept down a side path to distract them. When Vale drew his gun, Nora stood and shouted his charges. Chaos erupted. Abigail saw a man with a torch moving toward a dry shed. She fired, steady, sure, saving them all from another wildfire. A shot aimed at Cole flew from the ridge, but Eli saw it and threw himself forward, taking the bullet meant for Cole. He collapsed, bleeding into the dust. Cole fought Crow in a brutal clash of fists and fury. Crow fell at last against a sharp rock. Federal Magistrate Reeves arrived with the sheriff moments later. Judge Grigg was arrested. Vale was dragged away in irons. When the dust settled, the magistrate looked at Abigail. "The forced marriage holds no legal weight," he said. "Your voice decides its truth. Abigail Thatcher, do you choose this union?" Abigail looked at Cole, battered, bloody, loyal, and nodded. "I do," she said. "I choose him." The weeks that followed brought peace, justice, and healing. Eli recovered and left with a quiet, bittersweet smile, heading north to build a new life. They remained friends, bonded by trials no one else could understand. Cole and Abigail held their true wedding under the open prairie sky. Simple, honest, beautiful. A new beginning. The railroad came, but on the town's terms. The valley shared water fairly. Life slowly turned green again. And on warm evenings, Cole and Abigail sat on their porch, the apple orchard growing strong around them. Their fingers intertwined, their scars healed into something hopeful. Their love had been forged through fire, storm, and impossible choices, and it had risen stronger than all three.